Hello, everyone, and welcome to the International Interprofessional Mentorship Meeting. I am Kate Barlow. I am the founder and host of today's meeting. It is Thursday, September 15th, 2022, and today Kim Hughes and Amy Roberts are going to provide an introduction to Talk Yoga. Please hold all your questions to the end, and we will do a Q&A session after the presentation. And if you'd like to stay on afterwards for an informal meet and greet, we would love to have you. So thank you so much, Kim and Amy, for coming. We're really excited to hear your presentation.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much for inviting us. We're excited to be here and to share about the world of Talk Yoga with the world.
Thank you for inviting us. This is such an honor and a pleasure. We're excited.
Really wonderful. So thank you so much. We'll just do a little bit about ourselves. We are both speech language pathologists and yoga teachers. And probably the most important thing, we're really good friends. We've been friends for many years. I don't even
20?
know. It seems like that. A lot of years. So we initially started working together if you're a speech language pathologist, after you graduate, you have to do a clinical fellowship year and you need a supervisor. So Kim was my supervisor and we both live out in the Washington, D.C. area. So I moved out here and started working with Kim, and she was a wonderful mentor and I continue to learn from her. But I'll let Kim kind of share a little bit more about how we developed this program called Talk Yoga. But I currently have my own private practice in speech language pathology. I work mostly with early intervention, so younger children under the age of 3, but I do have a few older elementary clients, and I have one adult client, an adult autistic client right now. So that is my practice. And yeah, I'll let Kim go on.
Sure. So I've been practicing speech and language a little bit longer than Amy. This is my second career. Actually, I used to be in public relations, and it was just at a point where I knew I wanted to do something more and help people in a different way. And I was really interested in dyslexia. So I've actually got my, speech and language degree, and that's really my specialty is ADHD and dyslexia, that combination, as well as executive function, some of the things that go along with having ADHD. And we both worked at a school, like Amy was saying, for kids who had special learning needs. It was just this really cool collaborative environment where we had occupational therapists, physical therapists, and psychologists, as well as amazing teachers on staff. And through that process, I think, I know both of us learned so much from our colleagues. And, we would see the strategies they were using, and then we would try them out in our own sessions. And that's when we really started to make the connection that movement helps with speech and language. And, I know Amy has like one or two examples of what she could, she might share. But what we did was we created an after-school program. We called it something like the language of yoga. And we were really pairing just more language with movement, the movement of yoga. And then we'll talk about that a little bit, but we added more, and we made Talk Yoga. Do you want to talk about that first experience, or one of your first experiences?
Yes, sure.
At Kingsbury Day School. It's no longer around anyway.
Right.
We miss that school.
Yeah. So Kim and I worked with children that had varying needs in terms of language learning needs. And I had 2 little children who both are autistic, and I would see them in a group, but I would see them in my very small office sitting at a little table, and I was trying to engage them and trying to work on social language skills, and everything just felt kind of set up and artificial, and it didn't feel like I was getting any natural language. So I spoke with the occupational therapist who was also working with these children, and we decided, let's bring your session, my session, into the occupational therapy gym. And we started to co-treat, and that opened up a door of spontaneous, natural experiences for these kids that really helped develop their language. They were more imaginative. They, again, were more spontaneous. And the difference was we were in a larger space, right? But they were also moving. We were running through obstacle courses, or they were sitting on a swing and they were talking about what the swing represented. It was an airplane, you know, or a boat or something like that. And there was something unique about the movement that just brought some calm to them. And the more Kim and I have studied and have developed, now I understand why that movement of swinging or rocking or spinning, it was having an effect on their nervous system, calming them down, which was then allowing them to be available for learning and for participating in an experience and a social experience. So that was one of many experiences.
We have, yeah. I mean, I had a trampoline in my office and I had a client who wasn't talking very much. As soon as he got on one of those mini tramps, we call it mean length utterance. He said so much more. Like, what is going on? Like, we didn't understand until we just kept pursuing this line of thinking, because we saw that there was evidence back to, it's an evidence-based practice that we've developed.
So years later, after I actually got my 200-hour yoga training certification, and Kim, a couple years later, also received her 200 hours. After that, we really started putting our brains together and our two loves together of yoga and our speech and language therapy, and kept thinking about, how can we combine these? We see our friends in the OT and PT world doing this, which makes so much sense. Movement, right? Gross motor, fine motor movement that yoga addresses. But we knew that there was something that we could do.
Something here.
So we started developing a curriculum and relying on, the developmental milestones that we see that children go through, our neurotypical and our typical and our not neurotypical clients. Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like yeah.
They all progress through a certain, these certain milestones. So we created flows, yoga flows, which is just moving from one yoga pose to another. And we paired it with language. So we'll talk more later.
There's so much more. There's hours. I mean, we train people for, 2 days, basically.
Right. So we'll start here just to explain why we chose yoga and how we feel that yoga can be the method to address all of these things that we need to address in order to get to speech and language.
Right. So for us, like, yoga is the center, right? It's sort of the center of our universe because it's what we believe in. We believe it's a really good practice. And talk yoga, our sort of tagline is express, play, learn. So we think that, playing is a foundational skill to learning, and movement is a medium for that. And yoga is the medium. So if you're at the base of the lotus with me, and then yoga really emphasizes and allows us to access posture and breath and to learn about those things in ourselves. And then, once you have the ability to have good posture and breath, then your brain is ready to be mindful and your sensory systems are engaged through yoga. And with all those things in place and moving up, your self-esteem grows and you feel more confident, and your ability to regulate yourself is much stronger because you're working on the sensory piece, the breath. And then it all comes together at the top with speech and language, talking, listening, thinking, learning, and then also, the social skills. So that is just like we think yoga is the whole package or the whole lotus.
So when we talk about what Kim was just saying, the idea of express, play, and learn, the basis of talk yoga is that we really are working on all areas of their language. And as we look at express, we are talking about improving articulation. So that's the actual speech sounds. Often people think speech therapists, speech pathologists, they fix error sounds in little kids. That's all we do. We do a lot more than that, but But it definitely is a big piece when we're working with children. So when you have impaired articulation, your expressive language is impaired as well. So we address that through talk yoga. We also are addressing language abilities, both understanding, receptive, and also expressive, their vocabulary, their sentence structure. And we address that through talk yoga. And this helps children better express themselves. And then they're learning in a meaningful and fun context. So we know children really learn best when they're able to engage and move and interact rather than just sitting at a desk listening what we think maybe they're listening and maybe they're not. So talk yoga is fun. Yoga movements are very playful and very childlike. And so it's a fun experience for them. And I think one of the funnest things is that we are doing it with them. We are on the floor. We are rolling around, we are being silly, acting like animals, and they suddenly see us in a different light, that we're actually a fun person. We are not just this,
it's not just work,
demanding drill sergeant. So that moves into the play as well. We pretend we're jumping, we're strengthening, we're interacting, we're moving. It's a really great opportunity for something called co-regulation, which you probably all are aware of. But being able to work with someone else and be in the same space together, regulated together, so that they're able to listen and learn to us, and we can do the same with them. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add.
Well, I mean, we could go on and on, but like if we're having fun and it's playful to us, then it makes it more fun for us, and everyone wins. And then the families, carrying over into the home. If it's fun and playful, the child or adult, I mean, adults like to play and have fun too. So then they might be more, likely to just try it at home. Well, this was fun with Miss Amy or Miss Kim. Let me see if I can teach my siblings. And then just one note about express. We know that a lot of people, their ability to express isn't verbal. So, the idea of talk yoga being able to provide a lot of different opportunities to express oneself using eye contact or just just engagement. That's one way of expressing oneself. So our definition of express is definitely expanding, and it encompasses a lot of different ideas.
Definitely. So this is just a nice layout of the different areas that talk yoga addresses and the use of yoga. So on the left, you see yoga, which we feel improves learning and communication skills by integrating the body and the mind using breath and posture. And like we mentioned before with articulation, we're addressing articulation, and the way we do that is we are linking specially designed yoga poses with all the speech sounds in the English language for right now. We're working on some translations into Spanish, we hope soon. But for now,
do it. Yeah.
But for now, we have a pose that represents all the speech sounds of English. And we'll talk more about that in a bit. And then I'll do the left side. You can do that.
Perfect.
And then the next bubble down below articulation is this social emotional piece. So yoga is a very non-competitive, we feel non-threatening form of exercise or form of movement.
Recreation.
Yes. Recreation, which can truly be available to all with any ability. And so that takes out this piece of stress and, oh, am I going to be faster than this person, or I'm going to be slower than this person? And with that eliminated, you really can build confidence, and you are learning mindfulness skills, which creates a sense of calm, which is so nice for your emotional well-being. And we've seen this with so many of our students that maybe begin a little bit uncertain, but then start to take ownership and learn these poses and learn these movements, and they feel really good about themselves, and they teach their families, or they start teaching us. And so it's been wonderful to see this impact on social emotional well-being as well.
So if you look at the right side, the stages of development. So again, like Amy was saying, we wrote the curriculum based on, when, plurals, S's at the ends of words in English come into play, or ing, like moving, playing. So when we look at the child, we have come up with these categories called establishing, boosting, and enriching. So establishing is we're just starting with the foundational skills. Boosting is we're giving them sort of like the next leg up to the next level. And then enriching means like they might have lots of great skills, but how can we polish, and just like set them, out into the world to like really shine, and that, and sort of pairing with that social emotional piece. And then we, with Talk Yoga, address language skills. And again, the same thing, we're boosting the expressive and receptive language skills. So receptive meaning listening and comprehending, understanding, that's the learning. And then the expressive is the expression of communication. And then social skills are built because when people are learning, or children are learning to play with others and in a context that's really fun, they're going to, just be themselves and learn how to interact and engage. And so there's so much more about each of these things, but this is basically the overview.
Yeah. So we believe that any child or person can benefit from yoga. There's a special yoga center in North London, and the founder of that has said, Joe Manuel has said, any child can benefit from yoga. With yoga, you are speaking to a child's soul. So whatever their mental or physical capacity or incapacity, they can still benefit. And we've seen this. We think there's something really special.
Amen.
We just did a talk yoga class with a little girl last week who is nonverbal and not ambulatory. So she requires assistance for sitting and, and the connection that we made with her
so beautiful,
was really special.
And her caregiver too. It was just amazing time, the three of us together.
Yeah, just doing some of the simple poses that we have created, and her caregiver helping her. Like Kim was saying, she wasn't verbally expressing when we talk about express, play, learn, but she was expressing joy and happiness through this happy face and eye contact and looking up at us. And so anyone can benefit, even those who might be skeptical. I don't know if this is really for me. We would invite you to take a yoga class wherever you are, or go on YouTube. There's a lot on YouTube.
So one of the people who we really respect and think a lot of is the sort of pioneering work of Molly Lannon Kenny. And she is a speech language pathologist and yoga teacher, and she is the creator of integrative movement therapy. And, the work that she did in her research, her anecdotal evidence, her evidence, she came to the conclusion that pairing physical movement with language learning enhances recallability and stimulates novel appropriate language. So being able to remember vocabulary and maybe, things that they want to talk about, and then being able to say them in their own words. And so putting the movement together with the language just really like boosted that for her clients. And we see the same thing. So this is sort of like one of our cornerstone concepts.
And as we continue through this presentation, you'll see why that movement really does enhance language. We'll explain that a little bit. We'll touch the tip of the iceberg. So as we mentioned earlier, why did we choose yoga? Because yoga is integrating, you hear this if you do yoga, the body and the mind to express, play, and learn. And we also want to add the breath too here. So integrating the body, the breath, and the mind. And this really does result in a holistic and integrative approach to address not only speech and language abilities in clients, but also things like motor planning, breath control, postural support, mindfulness, sensory integration. And with all of these things being engaged, you are ready to learn. If you have taken a yoga class, you may notice that at the end, you feel really relaxed, but also a bit more alert
Mhm.
because you've done a lot of
Both.
breathing, right? A lot of movements to clear the mind, but integrating all of that together and utilizing the sensory systems in wonderful ways is what makes you available to learn. Is there
Right.
anything
I
else you
think,
can add?
runners or people who exercise a lot or athletes definitely know that to be true.
Mhm.
And then I'm certain there are, people who exercise before they need to study for a test or something. So
Mhm.
anyway,
Mhm. And there's a lot of research that supports yoga. And the reason why we have this kind of influx of yoga studios all around the world now, because we've learned from our friends in India where yoga where yoga was born,
mhm,
that there is so much benefit that a regular mindful awareness practice like yoga can actually change how your body and your brain respond to stress. And there's some possible strengthening connections in the prefrontal cortex and reducing reactivity in our limbic system, supporting self-reflection and self-regulation. And I'm sure all of you are familiar with what's happening in the limbic system, right? That's the regulator of stress and arousal and those kinds of things. And when we're able to calm that down
mhm.
and tap into our nervous system in a way that's helpful, it's helpful not just for us, but also for those who we are working with.
Right. So they're better able to attend, to pay attention, and then not become distracted as easily because
Mhm.
their attention has been focused
Mhm.
because of the yoga and the breathing and all that.
Mhm.
Wow. So yoga it does all these amazing things. It balances our energy. It gives us the ability to self-regulate. So we can't regulate our students or our clients all the time. We want them to learn how to do that. Yoga increases our energy. It gives us a focused mind. And then, like we've been saying, we really have seen a lot of improvements in self-esteem, and there's a lot of data and studies to support that as well.
And we also talk a lot about play and how yoga is playful, and how there's much evidence right now about how children and adults, I would argue,
Yeah. No, it's both.
need play in their lives. For little children, play is so important because it helps develop language skills, all of these things around the circle: self-talk, social skills, self-confidence, self-regulation, cooperation, and values, cause and effect, problem solving, speech. So when children play alone or when they're playing together and they're moving in a playful environment, all of these aspects of speech and language are being engaged. And so we find that when we are working with playful yoga, we see these different areas being addressed in various ways.
And I will say, not all yoga feels fun, but ours, talk yoga, is fun. Sometimes it feels like, I can't believe this pose, or there's hot yoga. I don't know. But
Yeah.
the way we interpret yoga is in a playful style.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So we've really learned a lot from occupational therapists, and you can just, if anybody's done yoga, you feel your whole sensory system is really engaged.
Mhm.
And so talk yoga, we are very mindful to pay attention to all the sensory systems and to really target them with our movements. It was very intentional to provide like rocking, which we know it helps the sensory system, for example. So, and we also, like, another cornerstone person who we really think a lot of, who helped us develop, not directly, but her work helped us develop our minds around talk yoga, is Jean Ayres. And she said speech and language are going to develop slowly if there's an irregularity in any aspect of sensory processing. So if any of the sensory system is off, if you feel itchy, you cannot pay attention. If your stomach hurts, you are not going to be able to engage. So if you can get the sensory system focused and at like rest and at peace and available, then you can communicate.
Yeah, we find this to be something that as speech language pathologists, many more in our field are learning a lot about the sensory systems and how we need to be more on board with recognizing when these need to be more regulated in ourselves and in those that we're working with. So this is just an overview of what we're talking about here. What are the sensory systems? So starting up top left, we have the auditory system, that's hearing. Olfactory is smell. And we'll talk about how these are in yoga.
Yeah.
We can go one by one.
No, but I don't know how much if we have time to do all of
We
it.
probably don't.
Well, we'll
Anyway,
touch on the most
The
important.
most
things,
important.
yeah.
So vestibular, very important. This is the system that's kind of within the inner ear, that system that's responsible. I do this for balance. And, if you think about, we were just recording a training the other day and we were talking about a roller coaster. If you get on a roller coaster and then you get off, you're like, woo.
And you can't talk.
No,
Really.
your vestibular system has been disoriented because you've been upside down and up and around. And so, it takes you a moment to kind of get back and you might feel a little off balance. So that's vestibular. You want to talk about proprioceptive?
Yeah, the proprioceptive is really like how your body gets information from the environment through your joints. And yoga really hits those joints. So, and it's very organizing when you engage the proprioceptive sensors, I guess, or maybe they're called, the joints, then you can really find more peace and calm.
It's the ability to know where your body is in space as well. And so for some of our clients who have sensory integration disorder or, difficulties in sensory, regulating their sensory system, proprioception is one that they might not be able to like close their eyes and touch their nose with their finger because they're just not sure, like where is my body in space. Something you often see little children do is go kind of upside down, like in a down dog.
Yeah, they put their head on the ground.
Because that's really organizing. Wherever your head is where you are in space. So if they're trying to figure that out, they may go upside down. So a lot of the poses in yoga, well, some of them are inversions. So you are in an upside down position, but you have to be aware of where your body is in space because of how you're moving. If I explain to a child, move your legs back, they need to know what that means. They need to know, what does back mean? How does my body move that way in space? And pairing it with the language,
it teaches them,
solidifies that.
Right. And these might be kids who also like, kind of bash into things because they're really like seeking some calm.
Or adults. I mean, we talk with kids
or adults, right, for sure, for sure. And then tactile is your sense of touch. And when you're pushed into the mat, you are feeling the mat,
and feeling where if you need to bring your hands together, or we do hands on shoulders, fingers together. This also translates to what's happening inside of the mouth. Tactile is huge in the mouth because speech
you have
is,
to know where your tongue is.
Got to know where your tongue is, what your tongue is doing. That also goes back to proprioception and all of this.
It's very, this is only an hour of this
together. And interoception.
Well, that's like when you know how you're feeling in your body, like if you have a headache or anything, could be like you're hungry, you have to go to the bathroom. Those are the things that we sense and that are there. And so yoga helps you pay attention to those sensations in your body as you learn to like breathe. And
I was just going to mention the breath, because if you're working too hard or if you're stressed out, your breath will increase, right? And when that happens in yoga, sometimes we're holding our breath because something's hard or the breathing starts to get really fast. Teaching ourselves and our clients to pay attention to that is a practice in mindfulness, but also being more interoceptively aware. That's not really a word, but anyway,
maybe it is now.
Maybe it is. And then visual, obviously, our visual system In yoga, you're using this if you've ever been in a yoga class and your teacher says, go into Shalabhasana, and you are like,
What is
what's
shallow?
that?
What is that?
You need your visual system. However, we have been able to help those with visual impairment,
Mhm.
with assistance from, hands-on physical prompts to help people also access yoga movements, even if your visual system is impaired. And gustatory, we won't
It's
talk
not
about.
really, we
It's
don't
just
really use
taste.
that in yoga.
Move on.
So just a quick overview, the flow, we develop flows and poses that can be used to regulate the sensory system. So some poses are calming, some are alerting. So if you have a client who maybe comes in and appears to maybe need to get their sensory system organized, you can choose some poses that are calming. Or if they're, like, oh, I don't want to be here, I'm really tired. Oh, let's do some alerting poses. And then that way you can get them ready to learn.
And the talking piece is we're always labeling feelings, and also labeling how our body is going to be moving. Like, for example, the calming pose, we might say hands, forehead, knees, just to label the body parts. We might talk about the positioning, bending, alerting, lifting, so we're labeling movements and body parts to help increase vocabulary development and understanding.
So if it hasn't become clear, we talk during our yoga, right?
Obviously, because we talk a lot. So
because yeah, it's not necessarily quiet. It's we're talking, and that's really the difference. Yeah, it's kind of cool.
It's not your typical yoga class.
It's not typical yoga. So we know that when you're moving, you can, in yoga, you have to think about, I want to be in warrior pose. So what do I need to do? I need to move my legs this way. I need to move my arms that way. So those are motor planning steps. And just to bring it to speech, the same idea, you need to be able to motor plan when you are talking. And it's not really something you think about, but your body over time develops those neural pathways and has, created the pathway for right? So has specific timing versus or k, k, k. So there's timing involved and motor planning in speech production. Yeah, you want
And
to
I
talk
was
to
going to say,
Lindsay.
yes,
Mhm.
Leslie Lindsay she's a nurse,
Yeah,
by trade,
trade.
and then a mother of a child with apraxia of speech. Apraxia of speech is a disorder we see where it's a motor planning. You know what apraxia is in terms of motor, right? So when you have the speech involved, it's impaired motor planning for speech functions. So she contacted us. We have developed a nice relationship with her, and she feels that as children learn to coordinate their movements with the sound, the neural pathways for that particular motor plan are further developed and strengthened. So pairing a movement with sound, with a word, with, a phrase helps to strengthen that neural pathway, those synapses that will then create a motor plan that's more automatic. And I think we have a video coming up next. And once I change the slide, the video starts. So I hope that it is.
We'll explain it.
We'll explain it afterwards.
Mhm.
But this is a client of mine, I hope. Oh, no, not yet.
Well, so physical
She's
therapy.
coming.
So it's just, I think we've been saying this, it's, yoga is gross motor movements. And when we're using the gross motor, then we can take that and put those big movements into our mouth as fine motor movements. And we'll explain that a little bit more with the articulation poses. So physical therapists target postural control for stability, and we need that for speaking and listening. If we're like this, how can we pay attention? How can we listen? How can we speak? How can we get enough air into our lungs to speak at a volume that people can hear, for example. And then this is a big idea. Then we invite you to look deeper. So you might want to take a note. Mary Massery, who's a physical therapist, if you look her up on YouTube, and she has this idea called the soda pop can theory. So soda pop can. So it's really the idea that the vocal folds and the pelvic floor need to be closed to be able to have proper posture, breathing, and then also it's for speaking.
We could talk a lot
That's
about
very
that.
quick. That's a quick and dirty. Look, go dig deeper in that. You'll find it very interesting.
We'll go past this quickly
We
because
just
we've
talked
talked a lot
movement,
about it.
movement, balance, coordination, endurance, because if you don't have endurance, how can you keep talking, et cetera, et cetera.
And posture, as we mentioned before, there are the yoga asanas, the yoga poses, assist the respiration process by establishing, and we always sit up straight, good postural alignment and helping to normalize high or low muscle tone. So many of the yoga poses are designed to address postural alignment. And that really does, we need that with children who we're working on speech and language with, because if, like Kim was showing, if you're slumping over, you're impacting that pressure that exists in between the vocal folds and the pelvic floor that are necessary for what I'm doing right now, for voicing, for getting the air out of my diaphragm through my vocal folds. It's so much more complicated than we give it credit for.
Yeah, it's complicated.
But just what I said, just that last bubble, breathing impacts posture and posture impacts breathing. And if we don't have these things working in sync, then we're going to fatigue. And with exercise, or in our case, therapy, and then that impacts success,
right,
and the effectiveness of therapy.
And even like postural support for feeding. So it's another swallowing. So we don't really even go into that all so much, but
some of you
that's
may.
something you all work on. That
Yes.
is why, we as speech language pathologists really target posture overall, because some of our clients drool because anyway, it goes on and on, but posture supports so many functions in the body and the brain.
Exactly.
Right. So that's what we just said. So breathing and mindfulness support relaxation, which then gives us the ability to focus and regulate. And then when we have those in place, then we can, communicate speech and language.
And again, breathing, proper respiration is one of the key factors in correcting communication disorders. So when we're thinking about what we do, it's not just about teaching proper respiration, but oxygenating the blood and strengthening the central nervous system is something that happens with a yoga practice as well, which just increases alertness and again, helps the child and the therapist be more available and more engaged.
Right. So that's why it's holistic, this idea of yoga, and multidisciplinary.
We won't say much more about this.
Yeah, just meditate on
We want to
that.
make sure you all have time to ask questions if you do.
Mindfulness.
Again, what we said at the beginning, a regular practice will
Create those
change
neural pathways.
how our brain and our body responds to stress. And believe it or not, our kids are stressed out. We all
they
know
know. Yeah, everyone, COVID.
everybody's
and life.
stressed, right? We've been through a very stressful situation these last several years. Mindfulness is more important than it has ever been before, we feel.
For sure.
And
So yeah, we've basically talked about this. I mean, you can review this slide later. I think it just helps. I would love with rapport. I mean, so you'll see how I develop rapport, how Amy develops rapport using this strategy of talk yoga.
Okay, this is a client of Kim's who has used talk yoga, and you'll see how the practice of talk yoga and therapy with Kim has helped her social, emotionally, and relationships.
Well, I would love to hear what's been happening in your life. And then you said speech language therapy is making a big change in your life. Tell me more.
Well, it's making a big change in my life because my grandpa has bad hearing and he feels like he can't understand me without always. And now that he understands me a bit more, what I say a bit more, it really helps our relationship.
I don't know.
That's really what we
That's
want.
And her R's are not perfect there, but she was on, the road to practicing and was, committed to it. And because she got that amazing feedback from her grandfather, of course, she's going to try to do something that's hard. Our articulation therapy is hard. And so, she's committed to it because of that relationship, the social piece for her.
Okay, I'm going to just skip
Yeah,
over
we kind of
that.
talked about that. You can review that slide later.
So our specific, as we've been mentioning, our talk yoga articulation poses, we have poses for every speech sound, and they can stand alone or you can integrate them with language work as well. And they were created to match gross motor movements with fine motor movements. So for example, if you're trying to teach a child how to make a sound that's produced in the back of the throat, in English, the sound, for example, is produced back here with your tongue. So our pose involves the child being on their back so that they allow gravity to help their tongue fall to the back. So we have thoughtfully thought about how to create these poses so that the child will learn gross motor first, because we know that comes first, and they'll have a concrete idea of what it means to get your tongue back or lift your tongue up, or feel really strong because they're doing a pose where they have to be really strong. So we have a couple of videos, I believe, where you can see this in action. We have a deck of cards with all of our poses. This is
Very helpful.
Feather.
Don't worry about your hands for right now. Try to say feather.
Feather.
One more time.
Feather.
Okay, now let's try it remembering our poses. So it starts with fire. Feather. Again. You say it fire pose first. Feather. Again.
Feather.
One more time, both hands up. Make fire pose. You say it.
Feather.
Good, Ava. Can you say it without the arms?
Feather.
We love that video. I think you really can see her processing processing the motor plan, and when she pairs it with the movement, it becomes more meaningful to her. We've been practicing this for a few weeks, but we just think it's pretty amazing that when she takes her hands down, she's practiced that and the sound comes out nice and clear. The word is nice and clear. She has apraxia of speech, so you can see the effort that it takes her to execute that motor plan for those sounds.
Pushing
Oh.
Pushing on your hands, the roo is stronger. So it's going to be kangaroo.
And push on my hand. This is the gas pedal.
I'm going to stop it and Kim will talk a little bit about this.
So you can see, like, we start all our clients with the pose the way it's pictured or taught, right? But then what we do is we follow their lead and we start to use their strengths. And so this friend has ADHD, has a lot of energy. So I consider that a strength. So let's use it. And so he's taken, the movement is a rocking back and forth, but now he's kind of, he's sitting on his mom's legs or something. And takes a lot of effort to, like, pull the tongue back, and it has to be strong. So what he's doing is he's getting that proprioceptive input for the and he's feeling like how much strength it takes to make that sound, to pull back his tongue by pushing with his feet. In some cases, there's a video, I don't know if this is one with his hands, but sometimes he's pushing with his feet or he's pushing with his arms. And then all this fades away, over time, and maybe a client's just pulling down and then maybe they're not doing anything. But you'll see how, you take the idea of what the gross motor movement is, and then the client feels it in their body, and then they start to really process it and own it, and then figure it out for themselves, which is what we want for carryover.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just, simple practice. His mom is really fun and she is really great with him. pushing on your hands, the roo is stronger. So it's going to be kangaroo.
And push on my hand.
Kangaroo.
This is the gas pedal.
Kangaroo. Kangaroo.
See?
Kangaroo. Kangaroo.
No, when you
Kangaroo.
push.
And
with
slow
the-
it down just a little bit, my friend. Okay. Kangaroo.
Well, kangaroo.
Slow.
He wants to push with his feet on roo. That's good too. Kangaroo.
Kangaroo. Kangaroo.
Very good. Oh, so much just fun. And it's fun, right? He's not stopping. He's not
Very fun.
bored. So
No.
that's like back to the fun part of yoga.
And this next client is working through some sounds with the production of his tongue in the back of his mouth. So we'll watch him. He also has apraxia of speech. So just pay attention to the amount of time it takes him to kind of process the movement. Gopher. Where does your tongue go? Okay, let's do gopher. Good job. Can you say g? Good. Goofy gopher. Good job. What's the next one that we say on our back? Because our tongue is in the back. Good. Change your legs. Your legs look different for koala. There you go. Good. Good. Can you say kind koala? Good. Okay, what's the last one? And we go on our back because where does our tongue go? Where? Good. Try it again. Let's say blue and then go on your back. Pull those legs over. Rainbow.
Rainbow.
Beautiful, Liam. Sit up. Okay, so there you go. That was an example of sounds from in the back of the mouth. And we really do explain to the kids, your tongue has to go back. They have to understand what's happening inside their mouth. So again, that movement of the whole body movement, there we were activating the vestibular system and the proprioceptive
Proprioception.
system because he's
Tactile,
moving, right?
yep, all-
Auditory.
I mean, hello.
It's
I mean,
all being
yep,
activated.
yep.
You can
So-
see it there.
So cool.
We want to be mindful of the time. So Kate, would you like to stop for questions or do you want us to?
We have about 3 questions in the chat box so far. Do you want to go ahead and start with those and then we can see how we are?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, one of the questions was who are the participants for Talk Yoga?
Good question.
So many people.
So many different people.
I mean, we've worked with preschoolers, we've worked with typically developing children, we've worked with non-typically developing children, adults and teenagers, middle school, elementary, pretty much anyone.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We do, I mean, most of the time, Kim and I on our caseloads, we're working with children with articulation errors or expressive language disorders. And so in terms of like makeup, that's kind of the client that we would use Talk Yoga for, clients that are autistic,
Right.
those who have
Down
Down
syndrome.
syndrome. Yeah. So really, I mean, of course, is it the end
ADHD.
all be all? No, but but we do truly believe that it's accessible to all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's
we think
great.
about
And
it as
one
tool.
more trick in our bag of tools.
Tool. It's a
right?
tool.
Like,
Right.
let's do
It's a
something
tool.
fun. Let's do something different. I love it. One of
Exactly.
the other questions was, where did you both take the yoga classes and is it online? And can you share the link or post?
Oh,
So the yoga classes, like for our program, is that what they're asking?
yeah. So
I believe it's where you 2 took your yoga classes, but Nora, chime in if I'm incorrect.
mhm.
Like where we trained?
Like it's 200 hours of training.
Yes.
So Amy took hers.
I took mine in, since we're in the DC area, I became trained through Yoga District in Washington, DC. And it was a 2-week intensive program. So I was there every day from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, I mean, I took mine, I've taken like children's yoga. There are a lot of places that do it, but there's one in DC called Circle Yoga. We'll see if we can look that up, or you can look it up, Circle Yoga. And it's probably like a 30-hour training. You know what I'm thinking we can do, Kate, is look up some other we'll put together a sheet of some possibilities of classes we've taken or things that we would recommend as far as, you know,
there's online training.
yeah, kids yoga training, but because that's one place to start, because 200 hours is a lot, but for some programs you can get 95 hours.
Or you can take hours.
And you know, that doesn't take quite as long, or nor is it as expensive. And then, you know, my training, my 200 hours was spent virtually because that's what was happening in the world at the time, in a local studio in Kensington, Maryland, where I live. But I don't know that they're doing it online anymore, but I'll look that up for you.
That would be great. And certainly anything online or international would be great.
Well, we just took a class through Yogaville. It was called the Neuroscience of Yoga. And that was it was hybrid. So you could be online or in person. And that was about 4 or 5 days. And it is a lot of the science. I mean, it is the science of what we were just talking about. And then that really, you know, helped us know that we have the right ideas. Yay us. We're you know, we understand and it makes sense. The yoga makes sense neurologically.
All right. So here's a good question. So someone has seen the thought of yoga can be applied for pregnant women and it can be applied after delivering a baby. Is it true? And then what's the difference?
That's a really good question. So that's more, I would say, like what you learned in your teacher training.
Yeah.
So we both did yoga while we were pregnant with our children. And there is a big difference though, between, I would say, prenatal yoga and postpartum yoga. So there's just specific movements when you are pregnant that you should not participate in. For example, you should not be going upside down when you are pregnant. That's probably
or like safe. In your 3rd trimester. I mean, there's like, it's very detailed. Like the 1st trimester, you can probably do normal thing. You can do normal things.
Right. It depends.
But it just depends. And also, you know, everybody's health is different when they're pregnant. So.
Yeah. So there's specific, and there's a lot of books and
there's a lot.
You know, you could like
YouTube
Google
that.
on YouTube prenatal yoga, and then postpartum yoga is just gentle yoga. So giving, you know, yourself time to recover and heal. Lots of breath work and meditation would be really good for postpartum yoga. Yeah.
And I think the benefit for us when it was prenatal is we also took this training we did this thing called hypnobirthing, where we learned to breathe and picture rainbow colors and be really chill. And I know it got me through really hard birthing twice, really hard. I mean, hard. So, you know, we know the benefits of breath work and meditation, you know.
Okay, so the next question is, have any schools had resistance with the word yoga? And Tiffany, please pipe in if I'm not sure.
That's a great question.
I can take our share away for now.
Yeah.
Yes, it hasn't happened.
Not the whole school though, but like say a family or two, because it's some people consider or think yoga is a religion, and it is not. But so I wouldn't say a whole school system.
No,
school has.
In fact, our school system here where we live, they offer yoga classes at the high school level for PE credit. We are currently working on bringing talk yoga into our local elementary school here. So we emphasize a lot that it is a movement. It's a movement-based program. But we have to say that there's so many pieces. Yoga is so much more than the poses. And when you do a training, you learn this, but we do emphasize the concepts of being kind to one another and You're on a yoga mat, you're going to stay on your mat. You're not going to go jump on someone else's. Well, that's a yoga concept of just not doing harm to others. So we don't explicitly teach those other pieces, but it's embedded. And we did this, one child whose family did not want her to participate. One year when we taught a talk yoga class, she ended up participating the next year.
Mhm.
So, I think
People warm up to the idea.
Yeah.
And yeah, but we're very clear that it's not a religion.
Okay. Next question. What advice would you give to those working in the community and have got to work while using various local languages?
Yeah, I was thinking about that as we were, showing the G and the K. I mean, so, I guess if you, and you'll have a lot to say on this too, but if you think like Amy created the poses, let me just say, like she came up with them. But then because I learned from her, we wanted to create some additional poses for like L, R, and S. So because I understood how it felt in my body, I understood the principles of why she created the poses, the movements, the way she did. I created additional poses that we use and our students use. And then, you saw that one child pushing with his feet and his arms. And then, once you learn how to feel the movements in your body, you can make your own. So then I think if you have, a sound that's particular to a particular language, you could make up your own pose for that sound based on.
Or you can consult with us and we can help you do it.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, I'm thinking there are hundreds of languages in the world, but
does that answer the question, person who asked that question?
yeah, I mean, I think please go for it. And if you get stuck, we'd love to collaborate and brainstorm because there are so many unique sounds in the world that English doesn't have. So
I know I'm thinking about what's represented on my screen here with all the little boxes.
We don't even know the possibilities. I mean, you guys could ask us and we could figure it out together.
Yeah.
Yes, that was Patience asking from Uganda. So she'll have to chime in if she has more questions. But so far, I've seen Nigeria, Turkey, Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, Kuwait, Kenya, US. If I missed your country, I'm sorry, but that's just what I've written down that I saw so far. So you had very good attendance today, ladies. Thank you. So
that's amazing.
Oh,
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank
so
you for having
thrilled.
us.
Thank you. Yeah, this was a pleasure.
So I did a call for any more questions and I haven't seen any come through. So what we could do is if anyone has a follow-up question, they can email me and I will forward you.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
we'll follow up with that information. Then maybe you can send another email
to everybody. Yeah.
That sounds great. Well, thank you so much. This is so informative and I have your cards and I love them. So you guys are doing great work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Have a great rest of